Environment, Part 1. My name is Geoff Smith. I'm Professor of Digital Ethics and Trust at Loughborough University. And with me tonight, I've got St John Deakins, who is the CEO of Datasapien, amongst many other things. And tonight, what we're seeking to do really is to just start some awareness and some conversation around some of the new technologies that we're seeing and some of the new ecosystems that we think are starting to emerge that will actually start to change and shift the landscape. This is really around raising awareness. So there's a bit of an awareness raising session as well. So we've got a Q&A, and then we will, Cinja's going to give us a bit of a demo of kind of what Datasapien is all about and kind of show you some of those things as well. So before we get going, I'd just like a kind of a bit of a show of hands or just some waves for those of you online. For those of you, I'm going to talk about AI to start with. Let's get AI out of the way. Who's used AI? Who's used AI effectively? Say positively, yeah. Who's finding AI quite a negative experience? Everyone's finding it an empowering experience.
Can I ask how many people use something like GPT or Claude on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Okay. And who has maybe trained an AI agent or the agent, anything like that? Yeah.
Started using experimenting.
So given we're at the British Computer Society, that's a good thing, I guess. So probably not a kind of a mass market kind of cohort, but certainly kind of it's the fastest growing technology at the time in terms of take up. Right? So
it is, and we've seen huge disruption, obviously, with the empowerment of OpenAI and generative AI. Is anyone using it from a commercial perspective? So as a consumer, are you using is it generally sort of using anything to kind of help you as a consumer at all?
Yeah.
I think it's the blurring.
Yeah.
You use it for yourself to consume, to give to your clients.
Okay.
So, when you said, are you using it? Yes, you are, but you're using it to actually help your client have options.
Okay. So what example have you got? Is that
so, for instance, public sector would have a lot of intersectionalities in their data.
Yeah.
You use that to actually provide options.
Right. Okay. So that actually, it improves the sort of services that you can offer. Anyone else using it actually directly as a consumer? It's what have you got?
just down the space.
Okay, I'm actually, so I mean, so where I'm going, this is an example of one, and this is a sort of an assistant. Okay, this is in the travel space. So it's Penny, who belongs to Priceline. Priceline's an online travel agent in the US, sister brand of Booking.com. You typically see me. And this was me just on their website earlier, just having a conversation around, hey, look, I'm planning to do some traveling. Can you give me some recommendations? And this is sort of the journey that kind of Penny took me on. It's like, hey, look, New York's amazing. Well, yeah, I kind of knew that, but thank you for this. And I kind of thought, well, I'll narrow it down and ask, look, I'm looking at where I want to stay. What she actually then says is she says, oh yeah, we have a lot of unique and personalized experience hotels that we can offer you. What she then lists underneath is just a list of areas of like, oh, there's Soho, there's the garment district, there's all these different, and I then chose garment because my grandmother was a seamstress and I kind of like the 1930s, and I kind of figured that's what, and she started to just give me a list of things. I thought, oh, this is quite interesting. But actually it has some constraints and limitations, because I started to look at this and think, well, actually, I probably could have just done this on Google. Actually, I mean, it's a great experiment. There is, what you can't see in here, there is a chat feature. So they've enabled a chat feature, so I could just start talking to it. And I started thinking, oh, this is quite nice as an experience, but does it really help me when I think about travel, really about planning? Because that's what I'm doing at this stage, pre-book. If you think about travel, it's plan, book, travel, stay, come home, yeah? I'm not really sure. So I started to look around, and up here, of course, you've got sign in to join VIP. So that obviously, they have a profile opportunity there. So I can join this, get some rewards. And that probably would enrich the experience, because they'd probably say, hey, Geoff, yeah, we know where you stay. We know the sort of stuff you like. We'll give you this. But this is typically kind of what we get, I think, as consumers now at the minute. We're just seeing these very light touch virtual assistants. And there are all sorts of reasons why they're light touch like this, I think. Partly it's constraints around access to data. Partly it's constraints around regulation, potentially. What Penny does have, and I know this because I know the product tip, and they're lovely, Priceline, by the way, just for the record. They have a feature that is, and it's young millennial Gen Z type thing is what they're trying to appeal to. So they're trying to appeal to a market of young, sort of low 30s and people in their 20s who may travel digitally, with work. So the developers that might want to kind of be digital nomads, and they have a feature in here that you can click and it says neighborhoods. You want to click on neighbors. What we'll do is we'll work out an area that you might want to stay. So you might want to go to New York, but you might not want to be on Times Square. We get that because it's going to be pricey, noisy, and really probably irritate you. Actually, if you live in Shoreditch, we'll probably put you in, Williamsburg, for example, in Brooklyn, because we think that's a neighborhood that you want to stay in. But the way they do that is to actually access the data from Google. So they just create a link into Google and they just take some data from Google and create a profile for you. And what they're doing there is starting to create a digital twin. And people are also looking at me like, really? How do they do that? It's only available in the US. Okay, so just to tell you now, that they have deliberately not switched it on in Europe. So I couldn't really do this because instantly this thing knew exactly where I lived because it had a location beacon, so it can understood I was in the UK. But that's sort of quite typical of our experience of dealing with AI. Any thoughts, any observations, questions? No?
Yeah, the fascinating thing is we're kind of in this switch over from a Google search where it's a very shallow prompt.
Yeah.
I'm going to New York.
Yeah.
Give me some stuff. To an agent. And if you think about kind of the extreme of this, is trying to replicate a human interaction, you go into an agent who, a physical agent, might be someone who you've shopped with over 5 years and they know that your grandmother's a seamstress and they know that.
Absolutely. And this is just an assistant at the minute. It's not really an agent. This is the thing. And it's interesting in travel because travel offers this opportunity for personalized agency, really, because if you think about that, I mean, as amongst other, other markets, but just in this case, I just thought this is quite a useful interaction around some of the challenges and constraints we see that are coming to market right now. Now, that's AI. We can just pause that and park that. There's a reason why I've shown you that. But we're just going to move on now to just talk a little bit about super apps. Now, is everyone comfortable with understanding super apps? No, okay, that's good because he's an expert. So I'm going to ask it. So Steve, what are super apps and why are they important?
Right. So the fascinating thing is we're kind of moving into this world of agents where the hype is that the machines will know everything about us and therefore they can give us this kind of amazing kind of interaction and almost kind of telepathic advice about what we want to do and getting our jobs done for us. And there's a lot of talk in Western markets, especially big tech in Silicon Valley, talking about trying to become a super app. So Elon Musk wants Twitter X, to become a super app. So super apps kind of really kind of grew up in early 2010s, mainly in markets where kind of there were a billion people coming online, mainly with smartphones from about 2006 onwards. And by 2010, 2011, 2012, you had kind of apps like Gojek, WeChat, Grab in Malaysia, which people's first experience of the internet was basically to go to that app. And it created a space for those apps to then try and solve and do jobs in other associated areas, right? So you'd have an app which is a taxi app, and then you book your cinemas through the same app. So those apps effectively became kind of the portal into the internet, like kind of AOL way back when. For Western markets, most people got online, kind of where the internet took off was basically through the laptop. So in Western markets, we use kind of auction sites for purchasing stuff, or kind of things like Priceline, etc. Or we go to British Airways or an aggregator site to buy tickets. So in terms of our behaviors, we're much more used to kind of using lots of different services. The interesting thing is we're now at a point where with agents coming through, there's a possibility of this kind of new layer of intermediation where we have an agent that just does everything for us and interacts with those apps. So we're moving into a world where if we trust a provider to basically kind of do jobs for us and get things done for us with our data, they can essentially move into additional like, kind of adjacent areas. Shall I carry on?
Yeah, so now you can. I've got a question for you, another
Okay.
question, but.
So the fascinating thing is there's a if we have an agent, if you can look at the way that Apple kind of launched Apple Intelligence, right? So Apple Intelligence is looking at kind of becoming an intermediation layer where Apple Intelligence will effectively do everything for you, and it will interact with your travel site and go and do the booking for you eventually. That's their kind of their game plan. Google looking at doing the same thing. So you've got a path where Apple and Google potentially could become the main interaction point for everything on the internet. They become effectively kind of phone-based super apps for everything. There's also a massive opportunity for two other things. Firstly, for existing brands. So I trust a Skyscanner to basically find the right price for me. For airlines, they could potentially become a domain app for everything travel or Expedia, etc. Right? So within the travel domain, I might use Expedia or Skyscanner or Booking.com to basically to plan everything for me end to end. And what we just saw on the screen, all the discovery up front with an app that knows everything about me and my likes and dislikes, etc. over time, and provides me with amazing kind of travel orchestration right the way across the journey. And that's kind of booking flights to taxis to hotels, everything else, right? And you can see those kind of domain apps coming through in travel, in automotive. So I have an app that basically does everything around my car, around home. So, home financing, home purchase, home insurance, home maintenance, etc. So we'll see these kind of domain apps coming through where as that kind of comes through over the next 3 or 4 years, which is kind of well on the way. And you can see apps that are trying to do this already at the moment. The next stage after that, there's a lot of talk about what we need to something that. So a friend we know, Jamie, is calling ultra apps, where we all have our own personal agent, personal AI, and that's kind of where Apple and Google are trying to play. So there's this really interesting dynamic at the moment where everything's changing very, very quickly. We're moving from old web apps into domain apps, Apple kind of phone-based agents, and then these kind of ultra apps.
And we unpick some of that because you just said an awful lot of stuff there. I kind of went from right, so I went from grab all the way through to actually I can have an agent that actually is acting for me.
Yes.
So actually, in the instance of Penny, I can just wake up and say, "Hey Penny, I fancy going to New York," and she'll just go, "Yeah, hey, I'll go get you a range of flights, and I'll pick the best one, or talk to me." Yeah. So that flips the model completely, because that's about intent now and not about the attention of lots of other ads and things that I face when I kind of try and do this on Google search or a browser, let's say. Yeah. So let's just what infrastructures. So from a privacy perspective, I should have told you all I was a data protection officer as well, so in the privacy thing. So I like the sound of the control of all of that wrapped around me. How does that work? I have some privacy concerns around the flow of that data.
Yes.
And what's the breakdown?
That's the massive issue. Is basically what happens with all that data. Right.
Yeah.
So okay.
No, go on.
So in the US, actually there are privacy laws coming through state by state.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a change in the US where 20 different states have definitions of sensitive data, and it's a lot more litigious. So there's changes happening there. We have GDPR, more European regulation coming through.
And again, I'm just going to say, as a DPO, it's flowing through this and having worked in privacy teams, I mean, a lot of that is quite defensive at the minute. A lot of the way we see that applied by companies is very much like the bare minimum. So we're seeing companies just establish here's a bare minimum right to some access, here's a bare minimum right to some portability. Maybe I'll up it a little bit because I might have to put under the TMA. In reality, I just want to kind of understand what technologies sort of break this up. And I remember, because we just talked about evolution of web, I saw Tim Berners-Lee say something recently. I think it was to promote Solid and Inrupt. But it said something along the lines of the first iteration of the web was driven by browsers. Obviously, second Web 2 has been very much driven by apps. Data wallets will drive Web 3. What are data wallets?
So data wallets are kind of two parts into this. But so data wallets are basically places where you can hold your own copy of your credentials. You might have an Apple wallet on your phone, and you may use it checking on flights, and others use it to pay stuff with my credit card. Actually, even half my team is in Istanbul. And I actually got to the airport recently and realized I'd forgot my wallet. And thought, do I go home or do I just try and use my phone all the way through to Istanbul, everything through that trip and then get home? And actually it was fine. I could use my my wallet on my phone for my airport checking, so my boarding pass on my phone. My Apple payments worked on my taxi, hotel, restaurants, everything. So I didn't actually need my wallet at all. So you're seeing the kind of the wallet being turned into effectively an app on the phone, and that's holding a credential, which is primarily finance, and then proof of purchase of something, proof of identity in terms of kind of getting onto a flight, etc. Those wallets are now progressing so that you can also hold, there's tests at the moment, for instance, with passports, but pretty much anything. I think I got something for my Chelsea membership is now an app on my, is in my wallet on Apple. So sorry, not on phone, sorry. But so pretty much everything is moving into that wallet for kind of, for those kind of transactions. The fascinating thing is when you add on a personal data store into the back of that. So if you have in your own domain, not only kind of your identity wallets and your access wallets and your payment, your payment credentials, but you also have the ability to store other live data, and you can pull that together with the wallet. So you've got kind of identity and verified attributes in the wallet, and those wallets are being pushed for driving license in the States. European Union's pushing something called EI-2, which is again credentials Europe-wide, so you can travel anywhere with verified credentials sitting in your phone. If you then start kind of putting in other live data like my Apple Health data or my YouTube behavior and connect that up, you then have really deep, rich fuel for a personal AI agent. And if that's in your own domain, you're then moving into a completely different space where you're empowered with your own data and you're able to project and use that data in ways to get things done for you. And that's a huge shift for the internet. And we're right in the middle of doing that. I didn't introduce myself probably at the start. I helped put British Airways online in the 90s. I kind of came up with the whole idea of omnichannel in 2000 for T-Mobile. Spent about 12 years in Singapore doing emerging market mobile. Helped about 150 odd million people get on the internet. So having been through those waves, this is the combination of identity and wallets with personal data and AI. You've got this confluence of forces, which are going to have a huge impact over the next 3 or 4 years.
So that sounds really interesting. And there's a number of things that so that's quite mind-blowing, because what you're just saying now is that it's completely flipped the model now. So now I don't have to log into that interface. I can actually have something that's wrapped around me and connected to my identity. I've got a question now because it's a privacy question. How the hell do I manage my identity without getting tracked?
Yeah, it's so we spent about 10 years kind of building out and playing with different models doing this with a company called Citizen. And the critical thing is basically providing people with empowerment in a way that is easy. Because if you add any cognitive load, as we all know, we're all kind of convenience driven. We want things to be easy. You naturally funnel people towards kind of things, the easy path. And cooking pop-ups are the obvious example of that, where everyone just clicks on the button and can move forward, right?
Yeah. But they're actually though, I just resist it. I hate them. When I stand just as an anecdote in front of students at the university, so typically individuals under the age of 21, I say, hey, I'm a privacy guy. They generally go, yeah, we hate that. So, oh, what do you hate? And now we hate. And they see it as the whole click in their journey that gets in the way. And when you ask them, well, what do you want? Well, actually, I just want to do it in one place, and I don't ever want to do a password again. I want to use my thumb to biometrically open all these things. And I want to. Is that what you're talking about? Enabling?
Yeah.
I need to take you to the university. Is that?
Well, so for what we're doing is basically we're shifting all of that, instead of that all sitting on a Google server on a big centralized server from big tech.
Right. Yeah.
We move all the intelligence to the smartphone. So you have your own data on your smartphone.
Okay.
And then you move the smarts, the AI, the intelligence to your phone. So a brand doesn't need to know your date of birth. they don't want to have your date of birth. They're going to get fined by the European Union regulator or a US state, probably more likely, because it's more litigious, for holding sensitive data, which is date of birth. But they do need to know your age or your age category to be able to provide you with a service.
When you say on my phone, you don't really mean on my phone.
I mean on your phone.
You mean on my phone, so I can store the data on my phone.
So you can store the data on your phone, backed up to into a personal cloud.
Okay, so it can sit on edge.
Yeah, and it's so the primary interface though is just fine because that's what we all use, right?
Or my glasses, if I go down that route.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as VR AR comes through at some point, I was blogging about VR and AR about 10 years ago. I think it would be through 5 years ago. So it's got a ways to go. But yeah, at some point, that will become the natural interface, and it's your data being with you. Right?
Two more questions now, because you're opening my, and please feel free to jump in as well. Because so I feel empowered. I've got my ID. And you said I can use that for multi-verified sources. So I guess that's the biometric on the phone, one of these government IDs, or
Yeah, absolutely. So you
media
could put in your driving license as a proof of ID.
Okay, yeah, and that's important from a trust perspective because you know, so I whoever I'm interacting with identifies I'm the right human. Can I control how much of that they see? Because, for example, obviously when I'm traveling, you know, I need to tell you exactly who I am because governments need to know, and airline, you know, the carriers need to know that I'm not a threat, so they need to exactly know whose passport is. I understand that.
Sure.
But if I'm entering just, I don't know, an e-commerce space, I don't necessarily need to tell you who I am. You just need to know I'm a human.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And that's enough, yeah.
And that's and you what we're calling progressive consent. So
Right,
as you move, just like if I move into a store physically, you know, I know who I am. But as I interact with a store keeper, basically I'll share information, I'll get better services in terms of the right thing that I'm buying or whatever else. Right. And it's exactly the same thing where you can progressively share consent based on the job you're trying to do. And if at any point you don't want to share that data, then it's entirely up to you.
Okay, I can just
At the moment, we start off with give us all your data up front. We're not going to tell you we've taken it. And then we'll kind of try and do some really bad, crappy personalization on the back.
okay. So I can now start to control the intent of where I'm going. What's in it for companies, right? Because obviously the reason why we have access to all of the internet, the reason why we have these things is because of advertising. Yeah, they paid for all of that stuff, and we've just gone, yeah, hey, here's the data, there it is. How do we now? What commercial model? I mean, how does that, or is that a cold start issue? Is that an issue?
Well, it's really interesting for advertising because for advertising, if you think about, obviously for programmatic advertising, things following around the internet, we all get creeped out by that. It's horrible. But you could also argue that, you know, for someone who's living in Tanzania and they get free access to Google Docs to run their small store, that's a big distribution of wealth, right? You've got kind of Europeans and Americans paying with their data for advertising, which is giving.
You've now just convinced me that cookies are great idea.
So
redistributed wealth.
in terms of kind of advertising isn't necessarily a bad model if it's done properly, right? But the advertising that I see, my personal agent on my phone can basically filter out the stuff that's really relevant for me. So the advertiser then knows they're sending advertising to me that's relevant. So they have a much better conversion rate. I'm seeing stuff that's actually useful to me, and whatever platform is providing that is then providing a much better ecosystem. So their value goes up as well, right? So you're actually if you can solve advertising and make it privacy preserving and empowering for the individual, it's actually not a bad model.
But actually, Stu's direct to me, it's direct relevance.
And
Question from the floor.
yeah, go on.
Yeah, privacy by design.
Yeah,
One
exactly.
of the key things, I mean, I've worked 17 years with telco in Africa, Globacom, MTN. We just finished doing a name, an identity backed by MasterCard, Visa, an EMV, it's a wallet, it's an identity card. Guess what? People didn't take it.
Yeah.
Even in climes not sophisticated, the big brother approach, people don't want. So there are a lot of legal, ethical constraints to the Web 3.0 as a
What was
pushback.
the job that it was solving for people?
Well, basically, we have a big challenge in Africa. It's no strong institutions. And because you don't have strong institutions, you don't have access to security data. security was then becoming an issue. And there are no boundaries. You know, we have artificial boundaries. These countries are artificial, actually.
Yeah.
So for instance, Nigeria, you have 525 nations called Nigeria, 525 languages with people of 500 million people who cross the borders in and out because they are related.
Yeah.
So that digital ID, I've just given you a big challenge right now, is yes, we wanted to use to the mobile phone. So it can be a health card, it could be, you know, anything you had as an idea. But one of the biggest challenges he had culturally, people were like, okay, hold on, I'm going to give you access to all this. What is in it for me?
That's a really interesting because that's a similar response that some of the countries that have been piloting some of the European data wallets, so the EWC, had a similar thing. So in the Netherlands and in Sweden, actually, and you think Sweden's quite a liberal, you know, minded country, and it's quite open. Particularly, they have quite open health data sharing there, for example, unlike the UK. But actually, even there, people are like, well, hang on a minute, we don't like this idea of having a central government register. There's an answer to this, isn't there? Well, self-sovereignty.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, obviously, you're quite right around why digital identity is important in this process, right? Because actually, it's about authenticating or authorizing, and then you can start to personalize and customize as we described. But how do we trust it? That's a key element, an absolute key element of culture, how we trust it. And it will be partly experimental. Identity is a moral concept, so it belongs to me. Yeah, my identity belongs to me. This is the point I was making earlier around how do I minimize who I am when I'm in a store, but actually where I have to share it for certain official things, then you do know exactly who I am. So how do we?
Well, it's a really good point. I mean, so centralized identity has got massive structural problems when it comes to privacy by design. I mean, there's a massive issue with, say, for Aadhaar in India, which is the kind of a nationwide identity scheme. I think within a year of launching, it was hacked, and because it's biometrics, right? Which you can't change your biometric. You could change your password, but you can't change your biometrics, right? Because it's biometrics, you could go on the dark web and buy an individual ID for about $9 because it gave you access to subsidized food and services and everything else, right? And it's because you've got a centralized honeypot of identities. If you can move those identities out to the edge and actually have the control of your identity out with the individual, you completely change the dynamic. Firstly, there's no centralized honeypot, right? So if Aadhaar had done a distributed self-sovereign model with everything out on the edge, they would have had a much more secure system, but also a more trustable system for the individual because they're in control of the way they interact.
I think we'll have this offline. Just go on because I've got real
picture here.
right, because I'll tell you why. I was on the technical committee for this.
Yeah.
And we already got hacked, not by internal or national, transnational actors were hacking.
Yeah.
So it becomes a critical security issue because now what we did, we had to change the law. We had to advise the government. It became a critical security infrastructure, and then had to move funds to protect it. In other words, we had a digital Fox Knox.
Absolutely. And so what we're starting to see is an evolution of these trust frameworks because of that, for that very purpose. And I mean, this is just a very high level. This picture, I sourced this from Adnovum, actually, who are one of the SSI providers. But just to give you a bit of a picture for everyone else, really. Actually, and like a federated model, which we have now, where we kind of have the central and you sort of pass data over, and you forever pass data over as well, by the way, because you're constantly having to re-inform and re-inform and re-inform. The way this model works is you connect data from issuer and verifier, and actually you can store it on edge. This in this case they put it in a decentralized, so they put it in distributed ledger, so they stick it on blockchain. But actually, what I can have as a holder is I can take things from authority. I can then hold in my wallet like proof of my diploma, proof of my insurance, proof of my identity, and actually then I can then use that for verification. So it actually starts to make the whole transaction process much easier for me to share my data rather than the constant sort of friction that I get now. And every point of that friction actually in the journey that you have today is an opportunity for a bad actor to get in. Fraud is the biggest thing. It's the biggest business online is fraud, right? So this evolution of trust frameworks to being self-sovereign I think it's quite exciting because it is potentially a key enabler. Stuff around data wallets.
Absolutely, yeah.
To your point, yeah, culturally needs to get accepted. There's a lot of work to do to get here. It's how we do that though, and and how we get those communities. What benefits do I see in doing this? One of them is contactless travel. I mean, this is, if you look at IATA, I think they've got a video you can go and check. But I think it was proof of concept with British Airways, I think.
That's right.
But that actually is an opportunity to sort of show that convenience and that trust. So
The fascinating thing here is that the issuer could be a driving license on the left.
Yeah.
The holder could be my personal wallet, or could be a brand that I trust, which is providing a wallet for me. Either I or that brand basically then verify whatever attribute it is. So rather than having to verify my date of birth across, it can just say I am over the age of 18, for example, right? And then you trust whoever the central kind of provider is. You're then basically saying that this person's got a driving license from this issuer. They are over this particular age, or this attribute is true. So you don't have to have the PII, the personally identifiable information, shared across to the verifier. Right. So it's much more privacy preserving, also puts the individual in control.
The question though, it changes the verifier from the government to a commercial body. And the laws right now does not support that. I mean, on this side. And in most Commonwealth countries, the government is the verifier, not the commercial body is the verifier.
It's interesting, but European Union, they're trying to work out how this is going to work commercially.
Well, you check the law, you can see what is done in the new act. It's still not very clear.
No, it's not, no. There are big consultations going on with large consultancies, basically trying to work out the business model for this as well. Because basically, how do the finances, why are people going to build these things out? Because you can say, well, governments will build everything out and therefore produce to use government money. But if you're trying to get these to be adopted in the consumer world, then why are businesses going to basically kind of tap into this, and where is the upside for them? And there are answers to that, but they're still being worked through, basically.
okay. Would you like to see a demo of DataSapien just to give you an idea of kind of self-control of data? Now, how do we do this? Technically, just give us a minute.
It should be fine. So what I'm going to show, so this is actually a really simple presentation. So what we're doing at DataSapien is providing the technology to big brands to build this out, and to basically embed personal agents into their existing apps, right? So you could be a grocery retailer, and rather than me doing a meal plan, people say they want, but actually kind of the mechanics are really clunky. You have an agent that does everything for you. So I'll show you a quick demonstration. Showing it again.
Stop sharing.
This is a live demo.
Hi, can I just butt in for a second with a request? Sitting out here in the world of the internet, you've got your screen set to blur my background, which means you keep on kind of appearing from a mist and then vanishing into it again. So if you can turn off blur my background at the moment, it would improve the quality of our experience. Thanks.
There we go.
Excellent.
Right. For some reason this isn't. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, it's gone to sleep.
We can stop sharing for a minute and then reshare.
Yeah, it should.
There you go.
Yeah, can I share my screen, was it?
No. Let me stop sharing this.
Okay. Why? Is that Zoom to stop me showing Premier League matches over Zoom?
The audience can see the room. The audience still, I think the audience can still see the room. Yeah.
Just right.
I'm just trying to find the meeting room. I've lost the bloody meeting room. It's all this stuff. Where is it?
Okay.
I forgot about that. So Zoom has a setting to stop me showing broadcasting
It's this one.
English Premier League over Zoom to lots of people.
There you
You're sharing now.
Can you see Zoom? And is that gonna?
go. Okay, no, that's not working at all.
I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. I'm gonna share. I've got it. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
So I'll share the entire screen. Okay.
I think we can see your screen. So
It's not sharing my allowing me to show video on my phone because it's something to do with Zoom, I think.
You don't have the demo on that,
No, I
laptop.
can't.
That's on your laptop now.
And you join and then you share from the phone.
Yeah, no, that's
I could potentially show a Loom. Let me have a look. Hold on.
this is empowering. Study.
So I could show you something I prepared earlier. I want to get to it. Okay, so right, let's see if this works. Okay, this is something. It's about 4 minutes, but we'll kind of take you through quickly. Let's see. It sounds good with my laptop.
So this
I'll talk you through it.
You might need to reshare your screen.
Can you?
Yeah, you go to the Zoom and you share the screen.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk you through this. You can see my there's like the speakers coming through on my laptop. So let me show you this. I lip sync with myself. Which is, okay, right. So on the left hand, on this side, we've basically got an app which is kind of a standard retail app, which we've mocked up, and then we've got kind of a little bundle of agent software sitting inside this mocked up app. It's playing. And then on the right hand side, right. So what we've done is basically looked at the top jobs, which are unmet jobs for people in grocery retail shoppers in the UK and the US. We basically looked at that there are about 25 jobs which aren't met by grocery retailers. The top one is kind of meal planning generally. And the first one is, how can I enjoy meals that meet my dietary restrictions, preferences, and health goals? And someone told me a stat at the retailer last week, about a third of women in the UK are on a diet at any time of the year. There's a Ozempic coming through, it's kind of massive issue. However, the current ways of doing meal planning are pretty clunky. So what we've built out on the left-hand side, hopefully I'm in sync with myself roughly, is we built out this application and we've got you can kind of go in, you can click on stuff and buy stuff, etc. Not for real, but kind of it's a working app. We set up this personalized meal planner. And the first thing you basically do is kind of go in, and if you're looking at kind of doing any a particular kind of meal plan, it could be kind of bulking up or diabetes management, etc., etc. Most popular one is gaining, losing weight. So we've done a mock-up on gaining weight. So first thing I do is basically connect up what's my current state. My current state is basically my calories, how many calories I want to burn a day. Most of the meal planners will say how many calories you want to burn or consume, but then I have no idea how many calories I spend in a day. Where do I even start as a consumer? So what we do is connect up Apple Health Kit. I can bring my Apple Health Kit into the app, all the data is staying on the app, and it basically shows me how many calories I'm spending per day on average over the last month. And then I can basically move this up and down and look at and kind of set my calorie goal a day for the meal planner for the week going forward, right? And I can just kind of scroll that up and down and kind of change whatever my goal might be. And what we've done is that's kind of getting out my current state. So I'm inside my current age and basically kind of creating this current state. We then look at my current desires. So we go out to YouTube. I can either select manually, I want Thai food or Mexican food, or I can basically scan my social media. And I could go out to TikTok or Instagram. We've done YouTube for this one. I pull into the phone my YouTube data, and it basically shows that I've been looking at various different things like bread and cereals and whatever else, according to, this is a dummy profile we've set up with salads and eggs and different types of diet over a month. And all that data has basically been pulled into the phone. I can then go through and select whatever it is that kind of I want to have as my, so I want to have an egg and salad and soup diet for the week. I then choose stuff that absolutely I can't have. So that could be, say, I'm allergic to peanuts. So I kind of scroll down through and I select peanut free. So that's me manually putting in a safeguard. And then that goes into my personal data store on the device for the next time I shop. And then that's immediately kind of spat out. Got a database of about 5 million recipes. And the AI has gone out and basically selected the best recipes. And I can add those to my cart. I can go into the recipes. I can look at sort of ingredients. I can look at recipes. I can swap ingredients out. I can look at the carbon footprint on the recipes, everything else. All of this is basically happening on the smartphone. And this is kind of a first step. What you could then move on to is, for example, the meal planner kind of looking at, I can take a picture of the food I'm eating every day. That data stays on my phone. A local AI then works out the calories I'm eating, adjusts my meal plan, says I've done an extra 2,000 steps today and therefore I can eat a cake at the end of my meal or whatever it is. And that then kind of moves this app from being a kind of a fairly static meal planning app for the next week into a dynamic nutrition advisor. So the grocery retailer is then moving from being kind of a grocery provider to being a nutrition advisor without needing any data, because all the data is sitting on my own personal supermarket app. Right. So and then on the left you can basically see as an individual I can see all the data that I'm holding. I can go in and kind of delete data, or I can change data, update stuff. So I have a full personal data repository sitting on my phone, which if I want to, I can drill down into and I can change. And next week, because I'm looking at Mexican food instead of Thai food, the meal plan on social media, the meal planner can automatically make suggestions that fit into things that change.
And these are relevant suggestions, not just any old. So actually
So it's based on my actual behaviour.
Yeah.
And it's all about building that kind of progressive consent. And as I do that, I then put in more data to basically.
This is what you call a zero RT engagement.
It's also zero. It's actually zero shared, because
Right.
none of the data needs to be shared with the supermarket. They just get a shopping list at the end of it.
Okay.
But for the supermarket, they don't need to have all that deep.
They just need the order.
Driving the agent.
They just need the order.
Yeah.
Any thoughts or questions?
Yeah.
That we can download.
I can send you a test app. We're talking to lots of grocery retailers at the moment about this. Also a big smart city, where this becomes kind of a city agent for interacting with things in the city. Automotive, where there's huge amounts of data coming from a car, which your car manufacturer is probably selling, without you realizing. All that data can come into your domain, and then you can see what it's about to break down, for example. It's an assistant.
So when you talked about a domain super app, that's what this is. That's what effectively this is.
Yeah, so we provide the tech to enable brands to become domain brands, basically.
And the next thing would be I could channel it. It just becomes the one.
Well,
channel.
if you imagine if we have 6 or 7 of these for different domains, instead of I have like 300 apps on my phone. So yeah, instead of having 5 parking apps, I just have a car app that sorts my parking on the background. Park paid. No?
And it just goes out and sorts out which.
It does everything for me. So then I have
which parking agent or which parking company I use. It just
exactly. And I know there's a massive opportunity for the right brand to basically, if there's the brand that I trust, I'm going to end up doing all that with because I trust them to just sort out my parking. The next level after that, I'm going to need a personal agent to run those apps for me. Right.
Personal agent you trust, but I think that's part 2.
That's part 2.
Okay, fine. Okay, any questions at all? And any questions online?
And no online, yeah.
Great, St. John's. I think, you know, sitting back here now with my enterprise architecture here, and I'm laughing here, going, yeah. And think about the legacy problem. So the Humvee that does Tesco's card, right? Club card. I don't know how many petabytes of data is existing on the Tesco Club card.
Sure.
So that, if you think about it, when I was working with Capgemini many years ago, that was about 24 years ago. So they got 24 years of data stored.
Yeah.
And you're just adding to that piece of complexity that they already have. Their problem is they've got this mountain of data they need to solve to get that picture.
Yeah.
And you're giving them a minuscule of it by adding to that. How do the two reconcile?
The thing is, I mean, we went to retailers in the States who are spending huge amounts of money with companies like Equifax to buy in data to enrich their existing understanding of their customers. And why not just ask your customers? Yeah.
We've always felt the Americans weren't very complex. I mean, I did some work with them on that. No, there's a difference.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will understand the school of thought about the complexity. The European or the Western buyer is more sophisticated in his buying simples, and that is very clear in the data that we have.
Sure.
So when you download an app in here, the first thing I'm thinking about is, what am I thinking? Am I getting value for money? Is it price? Am I looking at it? And you know what they call transformational marketing right now, where you're looking at the power being behind, the psychology behind what am I buying?
Okay.
That data in itself is crucial to that question you've just put in your app.
Yeah.
If the lady, as she said, downloads, there's a question that says, is it benefiting? What's it for me?
Exactly. And so what we're doing is focusing on the jobs that customers want done that aren't being met by the brand at the moment. So that list of 25 jobs that we've gone and done research on, there are 25 things that a retailer could be doing for their customers that customers don't feel are being provided properly. Like a meal plan, which is simple. And that's the number one thing that people want is, I want to enjoy my food, but I want it to fit in with my health goals, right? So focusing on the jobs means that you've got a reason to download the app. If you're downloading a loyalty app at the moment, you're doing it either in the UK because of differential pricing. So I've downloaded pretty much every retailer's loyalty app. So I'm a very promiscuous loyalty app user because I know if I walk into Tesco's, I'm going to get done over for pricing, right? So I just have to have a co-op app, and I've got Tesco's app, and I've got a Lidl app, and everything else, right? So I'm being forced to basically do that. And for the retailers right now, that's driving kind of lots of data going to retail media, which is driving profits for them, which is great. Very happy for them. But in terms of me as a customer, it's not really driving my loyalty. It's forcing me to basically share data with them. And what we're doing by focusing on jobs is actually kind of readjusting that balance and giving the customers a much better experience. So if Lidl, instead of Aldi, solved 5 of those 10 jobs for me, which are high priority for me, I'm much more likely to then use Lidl because I know that I've got an agent that's sitting on my phone, which is looking after my diet. Right. And that's then making me loyal because they're solving jobs instead of giving me points. There's the points to, really, I mean, saving £5 on a shop, yeah, but earning 20 pence because I bought a different brand of something. In the States, it's even worse. You have kind of a weekly drop of coupons. Everyone gets the same set of coupons. Right, so I get diapers. My kids are 18 and 19, so either they're really late or really early. I'm going to need them soon, or just 18 years late for my kids.
No, great idea. I think I love it because I come back from a telco background, and we had to, as you know, change products.
Yeah, that's
on
how
the fly.
I did work with MTN in South Africa.
Yeah, you have to change products on the fly.
Yeah. So and I think and communications is another area for a domain super app, right? The fascinating thing is what happens. So this for me is just clearly going to happen the next 3, 4, 5 years. We've already got brands that are trying to move into adjacent areas. Actually, a super app in the UK at the moment is probably Revolut, moving from being a bank. They can't really compete with HSBC because they don't have the spend power for branding, right? Which is the way that you grow because you're the same service to more customers. So they're moving into adjacent markets. So they'll move into insurance, they'll move into lots of different financial services, and that becomes effectively a financial services like domain app. Yeah. The thing after that is the Ultra app, which is part 2.
Part 2. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Have we got any questions online at all?
No.
No. Okay. Let's come to time now.
One more thing. Is this app a bit similar to Second Nature? There is an app done by the NHS called Second Nature. And again, it's for weight loss and exercises and so on. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of similarity between them, but not completely.
It's interesting in terms of the goals. Yeah. The NHS is still looking at lots of centralized data. So, I mean, the 100,000 Genome Project, for example, had a massive backlash because it's everyone putting their genome into a big centralized server. If you put it into this kind of architecture, you're distributing it out to the individuals. That's incredibly powerful with the GP app and my health records, right? I mean, so for services like that really should take off and they're massively beneficial for all of us. It's the way that you design the architecture, the data architecture.
30% of all data on the planet is related to human health, but only less than 10% of it's actually shared and used. So, yeah, I mean, it could be massively powerful. I think we've come to the end there. I think what we've got from there is put the human at the center of the model. Yeah, is that basically?
Absolutely. I was going to say earlier. So the whole thing about privacy, because you were talking about kind of privacy being about lockdown. Just to finish quickly, if you think about privacy as being really about giving people control about what data they share, and if people are controlled, we're empowering them, and that's really what we're talking about. It's moving from privacy to empowerment.
So that you're just talking about operationalizing what the intent of the law is. Yes. Okay. Thank you all very much. I hope you found that interesting, and yeah, look out for part 2. So thank you once again. Thank you.
Geoff and Sanjay for the interesting talk. I'd like also to ask you, I mean, the BCS opens a nomination for the council. If you'd like to nominate yourself for the council, please contact fill in the form online and find a supporter who's a BCS member. And you will enjoy it. And I mean, usually we have 4 meetings a year, one of them in the head office in Swindon, and the rest of them in London. But all the meetings are hybrid. So if you can't come, you can attend it online. Our next event is going to be 28th of November, and it's going to be a joint event with consultancy group, and Maria is going to send the details next week. This event, I mean, I'd like to thank Maria because everything was arranged by Maria, but she has to leave. She has to leave early today. Thank you all for coming, and we'll have some food and drink.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.